everyone. Thank you so much for logging on to our virtual event. So the panel discussion you're about to hear is very insightful and inspiring, so get comfortable. For those of you who are joining us from the comfort of your home, you're very welcome. And I know that we have other people streaming in from offices. And like I said, we've got audience from Australia, US, and Hong Kong today. So you're very welcome. So housekeeping. So we understand that it's very important for you all to have your questions answered today. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll do our absolute best to answer all questions towards the end. So there'll also be a short survey at the end, and it would be great for you to complete that and let us know if you enjoyed today's session. So for those of you who don't know about Stone and Chalk, we were founded as a not-for-profit in Sydney in 2015 to help fintech startups commercialize and grow. From 40 startups in 2015, it now has about 200 startups, and we have scale-ups also in Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide. So we're covering all areas of emerging technology, including prop tech, med tech, and martech, for example. So we do this by connecting our startups and scale-ups with our impact network, and we give them access to capital, customers, talent, expertise, and community, all aiming to help these startups and scale-ups to commercialize and grow and ultimately create jobs in Australia. So about the webinar today, so we're going to do this in 4 parts. First, we're going to have the interview with Shelper, CEO and resident founder of Loyalty and Reward Co. So he'll answer some questions about his new book and his view on the future of loyalty programs. Part 2, Stacey Lyons, the loyalty and director for Loyalty and Reward Co. will run a discussion with panelists on the future of loyalty in the fintech sector. And part 3, we'll open it to Q&A. And make sure you get your questions in, because there will be a book giveaway and wrap up by Max Savransky. He's the CEO of Loyalty and Reward Co. And you can submit questions to be in with a chance of winning a copy of the new book, Loyalty Programs, the Complete Guide. So please submit questions. Not only will your question be answered, but you can also win a book. It's pretty good.
Really good.
Great. So Shelper has extensive experience within the loyalty industry, including roles at Qantas, Frequent Flyer, and Vodafone. He's the CEO and founder of Australia's leading loyalty consultancy agency, Loyalty and Reward Co. Phil is a member of several hundred loyalty programs. It's a fat wallet. And an obsessive research of loyalty psychology and loyalty history, all of which he uses to understand the essential dynamics of what makes a successful loyalty program. So Phil, we have your book here. It's the Complete Guide. I believe it. It's nice and heavy. Yeah. So tell us your inspiration for writing the book.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. So Loyalty and Reward Co. has been running for 7.5 years now, and during that time, we've consulted to over 50 major brands globally. And as a result of that, we come across a lot of loyalty industry professionals, and we often get asked the question, is there a book that they can read that will tell them everything that they need to know about loyalty programs in order to help develop themselves within their career? And it became pretty clear to me quite a few years ago that such a book doesn't exist. So I've always wanted to write that book. I've been planning it for a few years. And when COVID hit earlier this year and we went into lockdown in Australia in early March, I decided with the team that we would start writing the book. So I started writing the first chapter in March of this year. I got the whole team involved. And then we also reached out to industry experts such as Lincoln Hunter and Stuart Dennis and Michael Smith to contribute as well. But ultimately, the inspiration was to provide that book that anyone in the loyalty industry can read, and it'll tell them everything that they need to know.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you've got an awesome team. So now they're all authors, co-authors.
Correct, yeah.
And the book is actually a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
That's right, yeah. So in Australia, it was a #1 best-selling marketing book on Amazon last week, and that's continued through. So
amazing.
Hopefully we'll stay there.
I mean, such an amazing achievement from a COVID project, right?
That's right, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So tell us about some of the clients that you've consulted for. How has that influenced the content for the book?
Yeah, so we've been really fortunate as a company. We've worked with clients such as McDonald's globally, Optus, CBA, Dan Murphy's, the ACCC as well, Rest Super, Flybuys New Zealand as well, Hoyts and Lend-Lease. So some really major, amazing brands, which has given us some really fascinating insight into all sorts of things. But ultimately what has influenced the content for the book is exposure to so many different industries. So you mentioned at the start that I'm a member of several hundred loyalty programs. What we do when we pick up a client in a new industry is we join all of the loyalty programs in that industry.
Yeah.
And we also study all of the loyalty programs in the same industry overseas. And so that has provided us with exposure to hundreds and hundreds of different programs across all different industries and all different designs. So when we went to write the book, we have a lot of theory in there, but we thought, why don't we take all of those loyalty programs that we're members of and include them as case studies in the book so that someone can read some theory and then see a practical example of a loyalty program that is applying that. And so as a result of that, we've now got over 150 case studies of actual live loyalty programs in the book from all around the world.
That's amazing. And I mean, like the clients that you mentioned before, it really places you. You're very well placed to write a book on this. Those are some incredible household names.
Yep. And I should also say one of the clients we're currently working with that we're really excited about is Klarna. And we've got Fran from Klarna who'll be joining the panel with us a bit later today as well.
Yeah, amazing. That's awesome. So chapter 2 is dedicated to the history of loyalty programs.
Yep.
And that starts with the loyalty programs in ancient Egypt.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, I think most people believe that loyalty programs is something quite modern, that it was invented through airlines as frequent flyer programs, but the modern history actually goes back 170 years. My wife is an Egyptologist, and she introduced me to a professor who'd written a book about how slaves and workers were paid in ancient Egypt because they didn't have money. So instead what they would earn is tokens that were in the shape of beer or in the shape of bread, and they could then exchange those for the real thing, and that was their subsistence diet. But if you're higher up the hierarchy, you would earn a multiple of what the base workers would earn. And what he said is it's the same structure as a frequent flyer program where someone earns a higher status tier and they get a multiple of bonus points to what the base tier would earn. In addition to that, if you're higher up and you could save up surplus tokens because you didn't need all that beer and bread, you could then exchange them for other things in the same way that if you've got enough points to cover all of your flights, you can then go and redeem some on a reward store for consumer goods or gift cards. But more in more modern times, we call the godfather of the modern loyalty program a guy called B.T. Babbitt, who was the first person to invent the individually wrapped bar of soap in New York City back in the 1850s. And he introduced a loyalty program where his customers were invited to cut out the brand on the pack of soap and save them up and then send them in, and they would be able to order a reward for doing so.
Oh, wow.
And that just kicked off a massive innovation burst in New York City and then spreading out right across the world from that. And it's a loyalty program is a structure that has been around for over 170 years, and the basic fundamental structure of it hasn't actually changed. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
I'm having flashbacks to my childhood of cutting out cereal boxes.
Exactly right.
It was the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you've dedicated 2 whole chapters to loyalty psychology. What's your favorite loyalty psychology theory?
Yeah, so there's a lot of consumer psychology that is available, and loyalty lends itself really well towards the application of consumer psychology. As you've mentioned, we've got 2 chapters of loyalty psychology with lots of case studies in there, if anyone wants to refer to it in the book. Probably my favourite theory at the moment, I've got lots of them, but the one that I'm utilising a lot for our clients is commitment theory. And it was formulated by Day back in 1960. 1969. And what he identified is that most of the loyalty programs around that time were measuring loyalty based on what he called behavioural commitment, which was how often their customers were going and spending with them. And they would say, okay, they're loyal because they are repeat customers. But what he pointed out was a lot of those customers would quickly switch to another brand or another product if something came along that was cheaper or better. Yeah. And what he said was what brands should be aiming for is what he called attitudinal commitment or an emotional bond with the member. Now, why I find this really interesting is because even today, most of the loyalty programs that we come across are measuring their success on behavioural commitment and not truly striving to build that rich emotional bond with their members that would really support their business and protect it. Because if a member has an emotional bond with the program, then they'll be less likely to consider competitor offers. They'll be less likely to be shopping on price. If they have a bad experience, they'll be less likely to churn. So we're doing a lot of focus at the moment on what is it that can be used to build an emotional bond with the member to build out that attitudinal commitment.
Yeah, and it's really about that future-focused, long-term relationship rather than the short-term gains and the bottom-line revenue, I guess.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So finally, what are some of the mega trends that you see evolving in the loyalty space?
Yeah, look, there's quite a few trends and a few mega trends. We've dedicated the final chapter of the book to where we see loyalty going, and the panel that's coming up next will be talking about that as well with some amazing industry experts. There's three that I would share with you today. The first one is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So there's a couple of very big programs who are investing heavily in this and are doing a really great job with it. So what it allows brands and loyalty programs to do is deliver hyper-personalised, hyper-targeted communications and offers so that the email that you get and the push notification that I get and the DM that someone else gets will be specifically tailored to me as an individual. And however you respond and however I respond to that communication, the AI platform will learn and adjust so that the next communication they send will increase the likelihood that you're going to engage with it. So really, really amazing stuff. There's a lot going on there, and it has a very big future across all aspects of loyalty. The second one is, which is once again very fascinating, is the convergence of payments and loyalty. So I've got a number of companies, including Gary from Pocketpal, who'll be up on the panel, who are developing card linking platforms where a member can scan their debit card or their credit card in their wallet and link it to their loyalty program. And then when they go and spend with that card at a participating merchant, they'll automatically earn the points or cashback or whatever the reward is without having to get an additional loyalty card out of their wallet. There's some really very exciting stuff happening in this space, and it's definitely a space to watch. And then the last one that I talk about is digital games. So we've seen a couple of companies over the last few years have enormous success with providing digital games to their members. So the member can go on into the app or onto a website, they can play a fun game, and at the end of it they can win a prize or access a discount offer. So Boost Juice had enormous success with this a couple of years ago. We saw McDonald's and a number of other fast food outlets around the world doing these types of approaches this year as well. And we see an enormous future with it, particularly because there's a number of companies that have come out over the last couple of years that have really good white label solutions that enable people to develop bespoke games specific for their audience and roll them out in a very cheap and cost-effective way. We're doing a lot of experimentation with this. We're talking with our clients about it a lot. It's super exciting.
Wow, that's so interesting. So interesting to see how tech is shaping that industry and data and analytics for sure with that AI piece. So interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, because all the touch points, I guess, are different. Like I might have 2 touch points with the brand and I'll convert, whereas you might be 5. So it's going to be really interesting to see what that holds. And I'm guilty of playing the McDonald's game. So I'll say it loud and proud, guys. Okay, great. So thank you so much, Phil. I'm going to invite Stacey from Loyalty and Reward Co now to start the panel discussion. And yeah, I'll leave you to it.
All right. And before I go, I just want to say shout out to my parents, Pat and Tony, and my parents-in-law, Steve and Margaret. Hope you're having a great time.
Hi everyone, hi panelists. So firstly, just want to thank Jackie and the entire Stone and Chalk team for hosting this event for us today. My name's Stacey Lyons, I'm the Loyalty Director at Loyalty and Reward Co. And I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking with such a stellar lineup of panelists today who are all approaching loyalty and leveraging technology in different ways to create innovative, disruptive and transformative customer experiences. Thank you all for participating on the call also, and welcome to the amazing panel. I'll do a little intro to the panelists and their businesses, and then we'll kick off into the open discussion around the future of loyalty. So firstly, we are lucky enough to have Fran Herrera, Country Head of Klarna for Australia and New Zealand on the panel today. Klarna are Europe's most highly valued private fintech with disruption a part of their DNA. Hi, Fran. So can you briefly explain what Klarna does and what it is about Klarna that's getting everyone so excited?
Thanks, Stacey. Look, Klarna is a global payments and shopping experience company. We really pride ourselves on being more than just a payment option on a checkout, and we work really hard to ensure that we create immersive experiences that customers can enjoy, whether they're shopping directly through a merchant or through our app.
Amazing. And I need to quickly ask you about the recent launch of the Klarna Rewards Club. Klarna are now leading the world in using loyalty as an extension of a buy now, pay later business model. So can you tell us a little bit about the strategy behind that?
Yeah, look, I think loyalty is part of Klarna's DNA, and one of the most, I guess, core elements of Klarna is actually customers. And through a lot of our research in the US, in Australia and around the world, what customers were telling us is that they wanted to be able to generate points or use currencies that are appealing to them when they are checking out with Klarna. And as a result of that, 3 months ago, we launched our Klarna Rewards program in the US, which has already over 1 million users in the US. In Australia, we're only 2 weeks old with the rewards program. And within that 2 weeks, we've already had over 6,000 consumers join the Rewards Club. Effectively, what it does is it enables customers to generate Klarna rewards in addition to any merchant's program. So retailers absolutely love it because we're adding incremental value to their own program. And the consumer loves it because they're actually able to link the two and get further value.
We absolutely love everything that Klarna are doing in the loyalty space, but also just generally in disrupting the buy now, pay later space in Australia. So we'll definitely keep a close eye on everything you're doing. And now I'll move on to our next panelist. We have Travis. So Travis Tyler is the Chief Product and Marketing Officer at 86400. And 86400 are Australia's first smart bank. Hi, Travis. So would you be us about 86400 in general and what it is your smart bank does?
Yeah, so 86400, we launched, we're the first of the new kind of bank, neobanks, to launch in September 2019. And we're actually the first globally to launch fully featured transaction savings and home loans in our first year. So now we cover more than 80% of what Australians need from a bank. It's all on your phone. And our whole premise is helping Australians take control. So a couple of things that are unique for us is you can connect all of your bank accounts into the one app. So we've got over 108 financial institutions connected to 86400. And then we use that data to help you understand your money, see a different view of your money, and then make better decisions that ultimately put more money back in your pocket. I'm excited about today because we're at the start of the journey with loyalty. So I'm looking forward to learning from yourselves and other panelists.
Amazing. Well, you're already doing some pretty cool stuff in loyalty, and 86400 is actually featured as one of the 150 best practice case studies throughout the book, Loyalty Programs, The Complete Guide, which Phil spoke about. Just to illustrate, the case study illustrates the key concepts that we talk about throughout the book. So your case study in particular features in the loyalty psychology chapter as an example of a company using surprise and delight as a powerful and effective tool for building customer relationships and generating advocacy. Can you touch briefly on the 86400 Pay It Forward campaign and the results that you're seeing from it?
Yeah, so for us, we wanted to, exactly right. We wanted to actually have moments of delight, and actually our experience is built around the jobs to be done framework, and we've also used the Kano model to help prioritise. And actually managing bills is the most frustrating thing for Australians, to actually stay on top of them, know they're coming, pay them on time and afford fees. But it's also something that we've all done for many, many years. So we looked at a core element of managing money. How do we actually introduce a moment of delight, do something genuinely different, but actually then live our purpose and help people take control? And then the last element was actually reinforce something that is unique about 86400. So we will drive that engagement and get that network effect on top of what you're already doing with 86400. So that was the premise of it. And what we do is every week we look at the bills that are coming up, because our service predicts what bills, whether you bank with 86400 or another bank. And then we actually put that money in people's accounts to help them pay that bill that week. So customers, one, they're surprised when it happens. Two, never thought a bank would do it. And importantly, they tell their friends about 86400. So we get that, we've got an advocacy-based growth model. And importantly, you actually just something nice in a moment such as this. And we did it just before COVID, didn't know that was coming, but it actually has helped quite a few people throughout that period.
Yeah, and our Chief Operating Officer, Max, he actually was lucky enough to have his Spotify monthly repayment paid for him on behalf of 86400 as part of this campaign, and also his Netflix bill paid for him as part of this campaign. So he even posted on LinkedIn about it, and that's how we actually got connected, because he gave you some organic advocacy through the campaign, which was really cool.
We love that. And one really interesting insight from the campaign, which surprised me, is we pay bills between $5 and $100. The amount has no impact on whether people are delighted or not. It's actually the gesture. And interestingly, we've actually had more feedback for people with smaller bills that are paid than the large ones, which I found fascinating.
Yeah, and there's lots of studies that are contained throughout the loyalty programs, the complete guide also, that prove that a smaller unexpected reward elicits more delight and has more positive outcomes than a larger expected reward. So that's something to keep in mind when designing a loyalty program as well. So I'll move on to our next speaker. We also have Gary Cobain with us today, the CEO of Pocketpal. Pocketpal technology delivers seamless and rewarding experiences to customers through card linking technology. So Gary, could you explain the Pocketpal business and the technology behind it?
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. Effectively, we've integrated with the card schemes. So in this case, MasterCard and Visa, and we're adding FPOS as we speak, which enables us to pick up the transactions in real time whenever they're conducted in stores. So from a consumer perspective, if you're one of the people on the call that don't need another loyalty card, but actually like to get the rewards and benefits associated with them, our technology removes all that friction. So you don't need additional cards, you link a bank card to it, and we drive the rewards on behalf of organizations.
Yeah, so we definitely recommend downloading the Pocketpal app and having a play and redeeming those offers. They've got some great partnerships already established, so definitely jump on and do that. So thanks everyone for the introduction to your businesses. And now that we have an understanding of some of the interesting ways that you're approaching loyalty within your sector, I'd now like to turn to the main topic of today's discussion, which is the future of loyalty. So I'm going to open these questions up to the whole panel, and feel free to jump in and answer them as you wish, if all of the panelists. So firstly, we're clearly seeing a trend with the convergence of loyalty and payments. So can you tell us about where you believe this trend is going? I might throw to you, Fran.
Thanks, Stacey. I was waiting to see if Travis or Gary wanted to jump in first. Look, I think what's very evident is, customers are driven by different behaviours, whether that's cashback, whether it's gift cards, whether it's a coalition currency, or an existing program. We know that customers are trying to get their wallets to work harder for them and their money to work smarter for them. And I think that convergence is only going to get tighter and tighter. If you go back sort of to when the loyalty programs attached themselves to credit cards, that is what shifted people between the use of credit cards. I think what we've seen now is that, categories like ours, like buy now, pay later, is only growing and going to continue to grow at a significant rate. But what we are hearing, as I mentioned earlier from customers, is that they are looking to understand what we're going to give to them for their loyalty. And they really are looking to partner with payment providers that do actually recognise them as a loyal company and as a loyal customer. So I think we're going to see a continual convergence between those. And I think there's also a convergence, and I know there's a later question coming on data, so I might hold off on that. But I think data plays a very big role in both the loyalty and payments convergence, which Travis touched on, I think, in his example as well.
Thanks, Fran. And what about you, Gary? Your business is the convergence of payments and of loyalty. So where do you think that this is heading?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The Australian market's very interesting in this regard. So the interchange fee, which is effectively the fee charged between the various financial institutions when they complete a transaction, is being regulated and getting smaller and smaller. So actually what's happening is the banks themselves, who used to, for example, issue rewards on credit cards but not debit cards, are trying to figure out how they can fund these things going forward, because they do drive consumer behavior and choice of which payment platforms used. So what we're doing is we're providing a range of what's called merchant funded offers. So retailers are happy actually to fund at that point of payment, because ultimately that's the real proof point, I guess. Are they interested in your brand? Are they engaging with your brand? It's when they make that purchase. And so we've found that the retailers are quite generous in funding rewards in that sector. And we have a growing network of around 1,000 merchants at this stage, or 1,000 offers in our platform, where people are happy to fund a reward at that point of purchase. So, payments is the real touch point for the consumer and the retailers involved. And then the banks, I guess, to Fran's point around data, I think are beginning to use some of the data that's been available to them for a long time to see how they can drive loyalty and improve the personalization of their proposition for consumers.
Absolutely, and I can feel that data is such a huge part of fintech's value proposition. So I might move now on to my second question for the panel, which is, in the future, how is data going to be used to drive more engaging member experiences? I might start with you, Travis.
Yeah, look, the data, if you haven't built your business to be powered by data, it's unlikely you'll be a business in 5 years. And what I mean by that is most of the value which typical industries have delivered is being whittled away through better experiences, better business models, and new services. So in every single way, we're seeing a lot of services now being embedded in something else. So that's exactly what loyalty in payments is. It's actually just embedding the value in the action that the customer's doing. Because if I get asked one more time for my Flyboys card when I don't have one, I'll go to the other supermarket. So data and making sure that you've got that infrastructure, and for a new bank such as us, that's what we spent so much time on, that'll power those experiences going forward. the next part on that data is, unless you can use that data to deliver value, you will become a wholesaler in your industry. And that's the biggest challenges for banks with payments, is that once that value from a customer perspective continues to go further up the interaction, meaning it's gone from, when I check my statement to get some money back, to when I'm actually checking a balance, to when I'm actually doing the transaction. If you're not providing value there, someone else will, and then you'll do all the lifting that has no margin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think consumers are becoming more aware that their data is being captured by companies. And if companies aren't using it to deliver more meaningful experiences, then you're right, they will take their business elsewhere.
And I think, Stacey, maybe just further to that, as you say, customers are so used to the fact that data is now readily available. If I think about Klarna, we're very fortunate in that we get basket information, whether it's in the cart or in a store. And, that gives us a lot of insight into customer behaviors, trends, likes, dislikes, etc. And I think one of the key differentiators, for someone like ourselves from the rest of the buy now, pay later pack, is that effectively we're actually using that data to then deliver personalized content through our communication channels to the consumer. And that, I think, is a fundamental piece that consumers are looking for more and more, because they want to be served relevant and meaningful information. They're not actually interested in turning up on any app for that matter and just seeing something that's completely not relevant to themselves. And I think that's one thing that really, as I mentioned, sets us apart from the competition, because the first thing we do is actually ask the customer, who are you? What do you like? What are your interests and dislikes? And then whenever they revisit our app, we're actually serving them that relevant and meaningful content. So I think data, to Travis's point, if you have a business that's not built on data, then you're going to be in trouble. I think the other piece around data, though, is there's a lot of businesses, and we obviously deal with a lot of retailers that have enormous amounts of data, but they don't actually have the skills and the expertise to then utilize that data to their benefit. And, a great example is some of the data scientists in the team identified with a particular retailer that there was a consistent pattern that like 73% of customers buying online from this particular retailer were putting a baby item and a gaming item in the same cart. Now, as a retailer, they had no idea about that. But when we were able to share that at one of our quarterly business reviews, that automatically triggered them driving campaigns to then capitalize on that. And of course, they saw massive growth across those two SKUs that they'd never thought of putting together. So it's great to be in a position to add value. And I think that's what's really important, is the value is both for the consumer and the merchant in that regard. And I think that's the equation that we've got to keep really balanced. As soon as it becomes one-sided, then nobody's effectively winning. But if you keep being able to deliver mutual outcomes for both the consumer and the retailer, then I think that, data can be super powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think yourselves, and I also think Amazon, Uber, Netflix, Spotify, all these companies are really setting consumer expectations for the level of service that they expect in terms of personalization and value that you can get from your data, and companies using it in meaningful ways to deliver better and more relevant customer experiences. So I might move on to my third question for the panel, and that is around how you're going to be using loyalty in the future to truly differentiate your businesses. Gary, will I throw this one to you?
I might jump in for a second. So I think we're seeing a couple of things, and consider our business as providing white label services to others. So the two things that we're seeing at this stage is commodity businesses, i.e. very mature industries, potentially with large consumer bases, trying to use loyalty to differentiate their proposition and to add more value into that proposition for the consumers. So that applies to telcos and banks, or at least the big banks of the past, as it were, rather than the new banks of the future. And I think the other thing that we're seeing is, and there's already been touched on about the emotional pull, we're seeing new businesses emerge that absolutely identify with that emotional element and are beginning to use loyalty and rewards to make that even better for the customers. So they've already got an emotional connect with the customer, but how do they reward them for continuing to engage with them and to stay with them? And so we've very much got two different customer segments almost that we're looking at the moment. And there's almost the old institutions that are looking for something to help them hold on to customers, and the new ones that are looking for something that is going to help attract customers to them.
Thanks, Gary. And Travis, what will 86400 be doing in the loyalty space to differentiate your business from competitors?
Yeah, we're at the start, and I'm very interested in what Fran says, because they've got a lot further ahead, and I'm interested in the baby gamers and also whether you've met Snoop. So look, for us, it's looking at how and changing the way we look at our business and how we deliver value. So one of the services that we've recently launched with another fintech with Accuracy, you can send us your bill, your electricity bill. There's 10 million that are paid a quarter in Australia, and then we can scan 200 data points, let you know what you can save, and then you can switch within 2 minutes in our app. So we're looking at how we go into other industries, and we're having hundreds of people using that a month, saving on between $200 and $2,000 a year. So it's how do you actually take your capability, and ours is banking and engineering, and then deliver value in other parts of customers' lives, and true value, not things where there's got to be a whole lot of friction. So we're looking at how we do beyond what you would traditionally expect from a bank, drive advocacy, which will then fuel growth. And then the other one for us is definitely around embedding more value in payments, because you've also got to make sure that you're great at what your core of your business is, and that'll be a big focus for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Travis. And lastly, Fran, what about Klarna? Where's the future of loyalty for Klarna?
Yes, I think, as I mentioned and you touched on as well, we're really proud of being a global first to release loyalty as part of Buy Now, Pay Later. And it is proving to drive that advocacy and engagement from customers. I think a really important point that I didn't make earlier with regards to loyalty, which is super important to us being a responsible lender, is the consumer doesn't actually receive the reward unless they repay. So we're actually driving the right outcome. The program essentially works on every dollar you spend, you earn a vibe, and then you're able to spend or use those vibes either for a gift card for a specific merchant that is a merchant of your choice, or down the track, as we've already done in the US, it will be you can have cashback discounts if that is your preference. And then we've got some really other exciting news, which I can't share just yet, but I think what I can say is that for us, we've really recognized that customers are telling us they want choice when it comes to loyalty. And we want to make sure that we are the first provider, particularly within a very busy space where there isn't a lot of loyalty at the moment, to be able to give customers a reason to want to partner with us. And at the same time, as I said, retailers are desperately trying to get customers to shop with them. It's tough going for the whole ecosystem. And, a really nice and simple example is if you think about the Cotton On Perks program, it's a fantastic program driving great results for the Cotton On business. Every dollar you spend, you earn $1. And when you spend 100, you get basically $10 to go and spend at any of the Cotton On brands. Our program will enable that same consumer who then checks out with Klarna to accrue 100 vibes for that same transaction. So we're adding further value to Cotton On in what is already a really strong proposition, as I mentioned earlier. So for us, this is only the beginning of this space. We will continue to talk to and listen to our consumers and our retail partners to iterate and reiterate our product to make sure that it is world leading and delivers the results that keep everybody engaged to deliver, as I mentioned, those mutual outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Consumers definitely want choice. They want flexibility. They want convenience. But above all, value will trump that, and consumers want value. So it's trying to find a way to build value into that equation that will really keep the continual engagement happening with the loyalty program. So thank you, everyone, for those amazing insights into your businesses and the great discussion on the future of loyalty. Now we're going to open questions up to the floor. So if you have any questions for Phil, he's going to be facilitating the Q&A, or if you have any questions for any of our great panelists, please write them in the Q&A discussion forum down the bottom of the Zoom link there. And just before I go, I just want to remind you, you can buy the book on Amazon in both paperback version or ebook version, and we've applied a discount for the next 3 days. So jump on, we'll send the links out, but Stone and Chalk will send the links out at the end of this event. So thank you, everyone. That's all from me, and I'll get Phil to come back and facilitate the discussion.
Thank you, Stacey, and thanks, panel. That was a really great discussion, and we should continue that for several days more. If it wasn't for time constraints. So we've had quite a few questions come through. We've had about 15 questions come through, so I'm probably not going to get time to go through all of them. I'll get through as many as I can, but anyone who has sent through a question that we don't get through to now, I will be typing a response and sending it to you, and happy to have any follow-up discussion as well. So the first question was, how do you build loyalty in a fast-paced technology industry such as finance and fintech? Look, there's a lot of principles that we try to instill in a best practice loyalty program design. Specific to fintech and finance, I think the two main principles that are critical for a good loyalty program, the first one is differentiation. If you think about banks, they all look pretty much the same. If you think about fintech, there's a lot of fintech companies out there, so how do you stand out from the crowd? So using a loyalty program in the way that 86400 have in the fintech space, in the way that Klarna are doing in the buy now, pay later space, is a really great way to make your brand stand out and be different and get more people considering it. And then the other principle is value. So people will join a loyalty program because they perceive they're going to get value out of it, and they'll continue to engage with that program because they perceive they are getting value out of it. So the challenge that finance and fintech companies need to solve is, how can you provide meaningful value to that member or to that customer that's going to make them want to engage with you and continue engaging with you? Okay, the next question is from Charles, who's with us all the way from Barcelona today. Hi, Charles. So how do you think are the best methods to engage with the mid-tail and longer-tail customers who are less frequent, and why would they join a loyalty program? Yeah, so we do have this challenge quite a lot. So companies who might only see 1 or 2 transactions by customers a year, or companies that may only see a transaction every 6 to 8 years, such as a real estate company or a car company. And it can definitely be challenging, but there are absolutely loyalty program designs that can be used in order to maintain the engagement with that customer. As I talked about earlier with respect to attitudinal commitment and emotional engagement, the key to these types of programs is building out a relationship with that customer that persists over the long term. That may be a member benefits type program, where by maintaining the engagement, the member gets access to a range of different benefits, either from you or from third-party partner companies, but also maintaining the conversation as well. So good quality email communications that give them value in the content, and even outbound calling them from time to time. If you look at what your competitors are doing, it's probably not very much. So you usually don't need to do that bit much more in order to really stand out in that way. Next one now, which is from Joshua. I'm quite interested to know your thoughts on the concept of interoperable loyalty programs, which are loyalty programs which allow users to sell points, to purchase points within another program. It appears to contradict the fundamental concept of loyalty, but I feel it could enhance loyalty in a new way. Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. Certainly coalition programs that enable you to earn points from lots of different retailers and consolidate them to spend with a single brand brands such as a supermarket, a hotel, or an airline, incredibly successful. So interoperability really just becomes an extension of that. The challenge becomes having the commercial model in place within the business that can allow for the outflow of revenue. So if a member is earning points and money is being set aside to cover the liability for the cost of those points, often companies don't want that the funds set aside to then be leaving the business and going and being redeemed on another company. So it can be a really challenging commercial model for them to deal with. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all interoperable model, but certainly for certain types of companies, it is something that is absolutely workable, and it really just depends whether the participating merchants see the value in it or not. It's something that was looked at quite a lot, quite extensively with the rise of cryptocurrencies, where companies were saying, we're going to design a cryptocurrency that sits at the center of everything and allows people to transfer their points from all of the different programs and get something special. That model fell down for a range of reasons, but ultimately it was because all of those companies where members had small points balances didn't want them transferring the points out of the ecosystem. And I'll just answer one more question before I hand over to Max, because we're running out of time. How are you preparing for and responding to the consumer data right? So this is a really interesting one. As we've seen in the EU with GDPR, governments around the world are really tightening up on how companies can collect, use, and share consumer data. And it's something that is really going to need to be taken very seriously by companies who aren't already doing so. In addition to that, you've got companies like Google who are banning the use of cookies, which will make digital marketing very complex. What does this mean for the loyalty industry? Well, ultimately, it's going to lead to the rise of zero-party data and first-party data, which is data that is directly collected by the company and by the loyalty program, which they can then own, and it's given willingly by the member to that loyalty program that they want to engage with in order to enhance and increase the value that they get from the program. So what we're already starting to see is a lot of companies who are building out really good quality strategies for collecting this zero-party and first-party data. It might be through games, it might be through surveys, it might be through improvements to their registration form, to customer profiles, to a whole heap of different ways, but expect to see a lot more about this theme over the next few years as governments crack down on how companies can use data, and that will also include the ability for members to be able to access that data and tell the companies what they can do with that data as well. So it's going to be a very, very interesting space over the next 5 years in all sorts of different countries. I've got room for two more. Okay, great. Okay, so the next one is from Michael. How do you modernize a business loyalty program for those businesses who have legacy programs that are struggling to compete with today's more modern and advanced offerings? So we've got within the book a whole chapter dedicated to B2B loyalty programs, so it's well worth having a read of that. B2B programs are very distinct to consumer programs. They have some strengths and some weaknesses, so it's worth having a look at that. But and it's not really that easy a question to answer. It is complicated, it is difficult. We work with a lot of clients in the B2B and B2C space who have an existing loyalty program. It's not very well designed. It might be a bit old, so it's dated. It's not delivering the engagement that they want, and there is more modern programs coming in from their competitors that are making them struggle to compete. We will do a really good redesign of the program and give them what they need to modernize it. Often the main challenge for these companies is the technology. So they've got legacy systems which prevent them from doing what they need to do in order to deliver the new program design. But the good news is there's some really amazing advances in loyalty technology, particularly over the past 5 years. There's some great platforms out there. They're very cost effective. So ultimately this requires a commitment by the business to bring in a new loyalty platform to replace what they're using, which then opens up a lot of capabilities to allow the program to be relaunched and then continue to evolve over time so it always remains current. I think that's it, actually. So I'm going to leave it there and I'll hand over to Max. There is a number of questions in here I haven't answered. So as I said, I will answer those in writing after this event when we've got a bit more time. The last thing I'd like to say is, please buy our book. This book is the most comprehensive book on loyalty programs in the world. It contains months and months of hard work by a lot of people. It contains enormous amounts of knowledge about the industry. So please jump onto Amazon, buy a copy of it, read it, share it with your friends, and help support getting the word out there so that together we can improve the overall quality of the loyalty industry. Thank you very much for your time today, and I'll now hand over to Max.
Hi guys, my name is Max and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Loyalty and Reward Co. So we've come to the end, almost the end, where I'm now going to announce the names, the 10 names of people who have been kind enough to ask questions. And in fact, we've actually had quite a few questions come through. So thank you everyone who's on the call. So here goes. Now, I'll first announce the questions and I'll tell you how you'll be able to access the book. So Kylie Ingram, Vini Dang, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, apologies if I'm not, Joshua Mappison, Michael Juragon, Attila Olgan, Piers Gorman, Honey Muir, Maddie Shimon, Jenny Harding, and Christian Highland. So guys, well done and congratulations. So all of you are going to receive an Amazon voucher via the same email that you registered with for this event, and you'll be able to purchase the book for free. And of course, as a thank you, both Phil and Stacey have already talked about this, but it would be remiss of me not to mention it again. If you do want to purchase the book, there's actually been a discount applied for the next 3 days. And you are able to access, of course, loyalty programs. Here we go, you can see that. Loyalty programs, the complete guide is available in paperback and of course by Kindle as well. So the paperback version you can buy on Amazon Australia, where the price has been reduced from $39 to $29. And Kindle, there's been a 20% price reduction there. And as I mentioned, that's for 3 days. So jump on Amazon, look for Loyalty Programs, the complete guide, and purchase your copy. And of course, you can also visit our website, which is rewardco.com.au, to not only have a look for the book, but also see what we do as a business in general. Yes, of course, and I was naturally going to do that. The panelists, thank you so much for being with us. I personally, and I think everyone else who's been on the call, has really enjoyed your participation and the insights, and especially your thoughts on the future of loyalty. And I'd again like to thank Stone and Chalk for hosting the event. So thank you all so much, and until next time.